Welcome to 2Cents FC and Happy New Year. I'm your host, Amobi Okugo, back again with my guy, L. Each week, we'll be discussing topics from around the soccer world and giving you our unfiltered thoughts and opinions. This week, we're joined by President and CEO of the Black Soccer's Members Association, Justin Reid. And this week, we'll be discussing the roles of Caribbean federations and the success of Concacaf and diversity in the coaching and administrative ranks of upper-tier soccer. Justin, thank you so much for joining us. Happy New Year. How are you doing today?
Happy New Year to you as well, fellas. And thank you very much for having me on the show. Doing excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a real pleasure to have you. You know, the first question we ask everybody that comes onto the show is, when did you fall in love with soccer?
I was 4 years old. It was actually my father. Unfortunately, recently he passed away. He passed away in June. But he got my Thank you. But he got my brother and I, so my brother's older, he's about 7 years older than me, involved with soccer. So I started playing at the age of 4. I played for a club called the Montgomery Soccer Incorporated. They are just outside of the Washington, D.C. area, huge club. I think they got like 25,000 kids now in it. And then from there, you know, I just took off. I just love playing the game. Anytime I got a chance, whether it was playing travel soccer, for a club, or if it was just playing pickup, my dad would take me to go play against bigger guys, guys sometimes 8, 9 years older than me. But I learned a lot. So it's a passion of mine and I love it.
No, that's amazing. And condolences, to you and your family at the passing of your father. Speaking of your father, many, African Americans, when it comes to the States, the basketball, they're in football, they're in baseball. So did your father have a background in soccer beforehand, or he just loved the sport? How did it come about?
Yeah, so he is originally Trinidad and Tobago, and he actually played there. He played for Fatima College, which is in the Port of Spain area. He didn't get an opportunity to play for the national team or anything, but he just loved studying and he just loved playing. So seeing that he's from the Caribbean, it was just something in his background. And once when we came here to the U.S., well, first we went to Canada back in the 60s, and then we moved here, to the Washington, D.C. area. And it's in his blood, it was in his blood. So it's just something that he passed on to us, and it's something that we are going to continue and pass on to our children. My nieces, they already play. They're 7 and 12. I have a daughter who's 1. So as soon as she starts walking and being able to kick the ball, she's going to be playing, so we want to keep this in the family as long as we can.
That's what it's all about, passing on. And, with soccer, that's the love, when families can come together and play it. So, we learned about your upbringing, but, tell us a little bit about your background, what led you to what you're doing now.
Sure. So, as I said, I started playing at the age of 4, played throughout middle school, played throughout high school, and I played in college as well. So I went to the University of Delaware, played there for 4 years, up until 2004. And then upon returning back to Maryland, I decided to volunteer for the New Carrollton Boys and Girls Club. I did it for about 2 to 3 years. Loved it, just enjoyed, working with the kids. And I had actually volunteered before at, when I was at the University of Maryland, not Maryland, University of Delaware. At the YMCA. It was actually some teammates of mine. They got me involved with coaching. They said, hey, why don't you come out and work with the kids? I think you'd be very, very good. And after that, I just fell in love with it. So after returning back to Maryland, again, I volunteer coach, and then I actually started my own soccer organization called Quick Feet Soccer Training. So Quick Feet Soccer Training evolved into a club, and I actually had a club for about 3 or 4 years. And I mean, this is another topic of discussion, but I know some of you guys may be, some of the audience may be familiar with soccer clubs, but when you have a small, bigger club start coming in and they start taking your best players. So unfortunately, I ended up losing the club, couldn't sustain because I was already in an area that focused in on football and basketball, right? So this is Prince George's County, Maryland. I don't know how many people, in the audience are familiar with it, but it's the wealthiest Black county in the country. So a lot of the kids play basketball. Kevin Durant, he's from there. They played football. So as soon as we gave them opportunity to play soccer, they loved it. But unfortunately, the bigger clubs took all the better players. But that was fortunate because I was able to transition into just doing clinics. So I changed the name from Quick Feet Soccer Training to Quick Feet Soccer for Kids. And now we just focus on clinics between the ages of 2 to 7. I have a staff of about 7 coaches, and we work with up to 500 kids a year, all over, whether it's doing camps, whether it's going into daycares, whether it's doing classes, after school, evening classes. So it was kind of a blessing that the club dissolved, because that kind of opened up my eyes to say, hey, look, I need to expand this thing and move it around the Washington, D.C. area.
No, that's amazing. And I know we're probably going to touch on it a little bit later, but what are your thoughts on, like, compensation for that, like payment solidarity? You find the kids at a younger age, and then you got these bigger clubs that will take them. If it was in Europe, they would compensate, your efforts, your club, and then you can then take that money and reinvest it back into the next cycle. We don't have that here yet to its fullest extent. So I just wanted to get your opinions on it.
Mm-hmm. I'm a big fan of it, because you got some clubs that are about 3 million. They generate $3 to $4 million in, say, the Maryland area. And then you got your little clubs that could generate maybe up to 100,000. So that's a big discrepancy there. You can do a lot more with $3 million of revenue compared to 100,000. So what if there was the solidarity payment, which is just another stream of income that can come into a smaller club that can help to sustain a club? I'm all for it. But with that now comes regulation, and you got to be able to regulate it at the state level. So take Maryland, for example. Maryland State Youth Soccer Association has to be able to make sure that they're regulating payments. So if I were to lose a player, seeing that they would have the card of the player, something needs to transfer over financially from one club to the next for that player in order for them to release that card. I think that's important. But if the states decide, hey, we're not going to do anything, then it just becomes the Wild Wild West, and you have to now trust this club to give you money for the player. But what's going to incentivize them? There's no third party involved. So I'm a big fan of it. I think it can help clubs to sustain. It also gives you incentive as a coach. So, for example, going back to my program is just 2 to 7 years old. And we have a player actually who's playing over in Denmark, and DC United actually signed him. Now, DC United has the rights to that player, but that player started with my program when he was 4 years old. So my organization, Quick Feet Soccer for Kids, gets nothing. He was a part of the Quick Feet Soccer Club before it dissolved. And I've got other players as well who've gone off, and they're currently in the academy system for Columbus Crew. And say these guys are to sign a professional contract overseas. My club gets nothing again. So I'm a big fan of it. It could be another revenue stream. It incentivizes the smaller clubs, and it doesn't allow the bigger clubs to monopolize soccer, which I think is going on all over the country. You usually got like one big club, and then they want to go into all these different sections and buy up different clubs. I know in Atlanta, where I am right now, just talking to a lot of the folks around the area, they said that there's a big 5. There's 5 clubs that are all over Atlanta, and they just want to buy up stuff and control the youth soccer industry. Well, what incentive is that to the small club? Right? So the small club could be that feeder into the big club, seeing that the big club is now trying to buy up everybody. But if that big club is now coming in and taking the players from the small club, then that small club can't survive. So I'm a big fan of it. It needs to happen, and it needs to be enforced.
No, I appreciate that. I completely agree with your sentiments. You got, coaches, staff, people, key stakeholders that are doing a great job developing the youth talent in the area, and, not getting compensated. And it's not just getting compensated from to put money in your pockets. It's for you to reinvest it back to, build the next talent, to build the next cycle, incentivize the next kid to come in and, develop. So hopefully, as time goes on and the U.S. grows in soccer, there's going to be vehicles for that.
I hope so, but I'm not very optimistic, guys, to be honest. I'm not very optimistic about that. And I'll tell you why. Major League Soccer is a monopoly. They control soccer in this country, and everything has to go through them. And you're seeing it more and more. They're starting to now get into the youth game. All right, MLS Next, that's what that is. And then they're going to now start controlling the youth system. They do not want a Christian Pulisic to slip through the cracks again, right? Remember, he went over to Germany and he played for Borussia Dortmund. U.S. Soccer, MLS got nothing out of it. So I'm not very optimistic about it. I hope something will happen, but guys, to be honest, I'm not optimistic.
Yeah, it should be interesting. But you know, I don't want to. We're not changing gears a little bit, but we're getting more into like some of the things that you do. Yeah,
Okay.
sorry, that you do. Talk about the Black Soccer Members Association. I'm mad props to what you're doing. You know, if I grew up, you know, besides my dad, I didn't really, and my uncles, I didn't have, you know, a black coach, you know, or a black figure in the soccer ranks that I could like, you know, talk to at from a 2 to 7 year old age. So, you know, what you're doing is amazing. But talk to us about how that came about.
So it's a long story. So the Black Soccer Membership Association came about in 2018. Previously, I was a part of what's now called the United Soccer Coaches Community Group. I think they had another name at the time. So I was there sitting, I guess I was a part of the committee. It really didn't have any structure, but I was probably there for about, 4 or 5 months. And I decided, this really isn't going anywhere. So I decided to now split off, and I took a few people from the United Soccer Coaches Black Community Group who came along, but they ended up actually going back to the community group. I don't know why, but they decided to do it. So BSMA started 3 years ago, and we are focused on empowering our people. We're not going to wait for an association like the United Soccer Coaches to tell us what we can do, right? Because that's what the community group is dealing with. They can't do anything without their approval. To hell with that. All right. Life's too short, and we have problems in our community that we have to deal with. So the Black Soccer Membership Association came about with 5 focus points. The first focus point is coaching education. We do not have a lot of Black coaches with A licenses in this country. All right. Not only that, we have a lot of coaches with D and C licenses, but they can't get any higher because of the cost of coaching education. The A license course, for example, I think it can cost like about $4,000, and that's over a 6-month period, I believe. But that's going back and forth from wherever you are in the country. Say you're in Seattle, you got to go from Seattle to Kansas City, back to Seattle, back to Kansas City, and it's a constant movement. So you're not only talking about losing money in terms of your job, if you got a 9 to 5, or even if you're coaching, you're still losing money, especially if you're from a club that's going to pay you as you coach. You're not talking about lodging, about food, because when you're on the road, it gets a little bit more expensive as opposed to buying groceries and eating at home. So there's a lot of expenses that a coach has to occur when they do their licensing. So we're there to support that coach financially. We have raised money so far in order to coaching fund the A license yet, because we only have X amount towards that program. So if we were to fund a couple A licenses, then that would leave not enough money for all the rest of the members who are maybe doing their D and C, where we can afford to give more to members. So coaching education is the first thing. The second thing are club grants. There are not that many Black club owners around the country. I think we calculated anywhere between 20 to 25. But we have a lot of guys who are doing training, a lot of small training clubs, whether they're doing it as sole proprietors, where it's just them individually, or if they're doing it as an LLC. So with the Black run clubs, we support them not just with financial purposes, but we also support them with any resources they need. Usually when you start off a club, your major expenses are going to be your coaching fees. That's going to be the number one. Your league fees, your referee fees. So we will help to support those clubs that need assistance financially. Now that comes within filling out a grant application. We also support those clubs in terms of equipment. So if they need anything in terms of hurdles or sticks or soccer balls or pennies, we will provide that to them. Okay, so that's the second thing. The third thing is a program called Soccer to Achieve. Soccer to Achieve launched last year, and it's an inner city program. So currently we have one operating in Baltimore City. Because of COVID, we didn't get that many kids this past year, but we're expecting when everything kind of heals up a bit, with COVID, that we're going to get a big boom in the spring if the kids, of course, go back into the schools. So that's Baltimore City. We're looking to expand to Atlanta, Detroit, Chicago, and Oakland. Those are going to be our next destinations. So we've got partners that we have collaborated with in order to make that happen. The fourth thing that we focus on with the Black Soccer Membership Association is a tournament. So we have a tournament called the DC Cup. We couldn't run it last year, 2020, right, because of COVID, but we're hoping to do it next year. This is an opportunity for Black coaches to come together. We're going to make this our annual event. It's held between July 1st to the 5th. So right now, part of my job is to travel the country and get more Black coaches to bring their teams to the tournament. This gives us an opportunity now to showcase our abilities. Of course, the tournament is open to everybody, all right? But we know that there's thousands of tournaments out there, but we want to showcase the talent that we have and our ability to develop players. And then the fifth program that we have is what I'm currently wearing right now, and the name is called the North America Caribbean Training Method. And what this does is it showcases Caribbean coaches who currently living here in Canada and the US. A lot of these guys have really done an incredible job of developing players. If it's Lincoln Phillips, I don't know if you guys know the name, but he is an ambassador for us. Lincoln worked with Tony Miola, right? Yep, Tony Miola, who used to be the national team coach. There's Lauren Donaldson, all right? We are still kind of yet to engage him, but we will bring him in eventually. He's worked with Mallory Pugh. So we have a lot of talented coaches who have worked with a lot of the national team players that we see today and are doing great stuff, or national team players of the past, but they're not getting the accolades in a sense. They're not able to get the head coaching jobs for the U.S. national team. I think currently there is 0 U.S. Black coaches for the national team on both the men's and the women's side. If it's from the youth level, I believe they start now at U15. I think they dropped their U14. I'm not sure. All the way up to the senior, 0. All right. So showcasing these guys and their talents by doing camps and bringing the guys together is what that program is about. So that's our 5 programs that we operate.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I think I know Elle is probably excited trying to find ways to sponsor the tournament.
Okay.
Definitely let me know when you guys come out to Oakland. I mean, I'm in Sacramento, so that's close to me, but definitely would love to get involved in some capacity.
Absolutely.
So, you mentioned saying, to hell with waiting. Was there like a specific moment for you where you were like, you know what? Okay, I'm going to start it on my own,
Yeah. Sometimes when we as Black people get together, it's a sing and dance, and we just kind of just talk a lot with no follow-up. The United Soccer Coaches Community Group for many, many years, because, I was a part of that committee, as I said, for 5 or 6 months, but I have always been a part of the United Soccer Coaches. I would go to their meetings. I would sit in their meetings. I would give suggestions. One year, they have great, suggestions. Everybody's riled up, ready to go. Nothing happens until the next year. The only thing changes is the city. So you go from Philadelphia to Chicago, but you get nothing done in between. So I said, forget this. I'm not going to continue to waste my time going to a meeting, virtually talking about nothing, and then get nothing done in between. And that just happened way too often. And I said, it's like Albert Einstein saying, right? Doesn't he say something, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result? Yeah. I said, you know what? I can't do this again. I got to do something different. So that's how we ended up breaking off and forming the 5 things that we believe are important to us as a Black community to move us forward.
Perfect. So in terms of like coaching philosophy, you're a coach, you have the, Trinidad and Tobago upbringing, you grew up in the Maryland area. I know it's a very diverse culture, very strong soccer community. You played at the collegiate level, you played at a high level. What's your overall favorite soccer philosophy, favorite style, coaching style? What do you like to focus on when you teach your kids?
Well, as a player, I was a defender. And I love to tackle. I love to get in there, win the ball, and play the midfield. Now, that's kind of when I played at the travel level. I guess maybe the coach thought I wasn't good enough to be able to play, midfield because, you need a bit more skill or as a forward where you got to have some type of finesse and kind of that what's it called, killer instinct. So I decided to, transition into defense at a higher level. But in like high school, I would play the midfield position or the forward position. So to answer your question in terms of coaching, what my philosophy is, it's pretty much based upon technical development, especially with the age group that my coaches work with. Our curriculum, the kids have to have a ball at their feet the entire time. We have no lines. We don't believe in lines. Lines is just a waste of time, because if the kid is only at practice for 45 minutes to an hour, what are you going to stay in a line for 10, 15 minutes? The kids are going to start losing their attention. So we keep the kids moving. We keep them competitive. We do 1v1s, 2v2s, 3v3s, of course, at the older age groups, not at the 2 and 3 year olds, but pretty much 4 and up. So just a lot of playing with the ball. That's important. That's really going to help the kids to develop their technical skills at that age. So that's our emphasis. Of course, as the kids get older, they move on to different clubs. And then, of course, it's up to the club to decide what their philosophy is going to be.
I love that. That's what it's all about, because, anyone could be, have the physical attributes, but when it comes to technique and technical ability and tactical understanding, the sooner you learn that, as we've seen our counterparts, overseas or, Africa, South America, it's that technical flair that they have. So if we build the foundation like you do, it's going to help the talent, when they get older and, they catch up with their body and understand the game a little bit more. But the foundation is the technique. So I love that. I love that a lot.
It's important. Yeah.
So in terms of you spoke a little bit about the United Soccer Coaches Association. You talked a little bit about MLS. Say you are president of U.S. Soccer. What are you like? What's the first thing that you're doing?
First thing I'm doing is bringing everybody together, like the real people who understand soccer at a high level. I think U.S. Soccer, they don't have enough people who are involved with soccer at a high level. I think from a business end, they've got great people. They got great business people. Just look at Major League Soccer. A lot of people criticize Major League Soccer for not being promotion, relegation, but I don't agree with that. I think you have to, seeing that they've tried in the past to do things, but the leagues have failed. So with MLS, being what MLS is, you see it's been able to sustain. It's going on, 26, 27 years now. So I would bring together more people at a higher level who understand the game, especially on the technical level. I would also restructure U.S. Soccer just a great deal. I think that the solidarity payments is something that must be approved. I believe last I read about it, I think that was something that they were talking about, or maybe that's something that's in the works. I mean, I don't know, but I think that's something that would be important as well. There has to be a top-down effect, and all the clubs have to kind of trickle up to the top. We've got to all come together. I know it's a big country, and I know it's really, really difficult, but it's important that there's that structure, and I think that's what U.S. Soccer is missing. They're missing that structure from the grassroots all the way up to the professional level.
Perfect. So, as 2021 comes, obviously, you mentioned some things that, got affected because of, how 2020 went from COVID and, all the other things that happened. What are some of your missions and goals as you move forward with, not only quick soccer training clinics, but Black Soccer Members Association as well?
Well, the Black Soccer membership's goal will always be to continue to grow the membership base. We started a podcast as well, so I'm leading that podcast, but eventually we'd like to move it into an internet, like television type thing, where we are going around the country and we're, talking to our members, and we're video, taping their practices, and we're kind of showing it on television, because a lot of coaches want to learn from each other. It's just there has to be that icebreaker. A lot of coaches tend to be very insecure. Let's just call it what it is. They tend to be very insecure in terms of giving information away. But if we can be that third party to kind of say, hey, here's a member over here. He's in California. Here's a member over here in New York. You guys can learn from each other. Don't look at each other as, oh, he's a coach, I'm a coach, we're against each other. No, We have to kill that mentality. The second thing is to bring Black run clubs together in specific areas. Kind of going back to what I spoke about earlier, there are a lot of clubs that are uniting and just coming together, constantly just coming together, and they're making their club even bigger. But for whatever reason, Black clubs don't want to do that. Maybe it's an ego thing, back to insecurity. Maybe it's a trust issue. So we want to be that middleman in a sense to, hey, say we have to come together because that's what's going to make us better. That's what's going to keep our club sustainable. I'd rather come together with a person who has 100 kids. So say I have 60 kids in my club. What am I doing with 60 kids and I can't grow? And it's taking me years and years and years and I can't grow. Why not join together with the other Black run club who may have 100? Now you give yourself 160 kids. That looks so much better from a membership standpoint. People look at 60 and they say, oh yeah, we got 60 kids in the club, but sometimes we go to games and we only have like 9 kids showing up at games. We only have 11. Well, because you only have 60 kids in your club. But if you join together and you brought everybody together, then you can make, 15 kids per game or 16 kids per game. So that's something that's important to us. We want to bring Black clubs together. So as the Black Soccer Membership Association, it's slowly happening, but we're starting to bring people together.
That's what it's all about. And I appreciate you for that. When it comes to, getting kids in the inner city, everyone talks about, we got to do this, we got to do that. This is the reason why our best athletes are playing this. What's your reasoning as to why, or how can we get, more inner city kids, involved, essentially more Black kids?
2 things. Access is always one. Access to soccer in your location. Instead of you having to drive or a parent having to drive, 30 minutes outside to go pay some club, say $2,500, which some parents in the inner cities, some may say they don't have the money to pay, but if their kid is really good and it's a priority, they will find a way to pay. If their kid is playing for, I don't know, Bethesda, soccer club, they would leave the inner city of DC if their kid is good enough and pay that $2,500. All right. So with the inner city kids, we have to have access and programs in the cities, but those programs have to have resources and they have to have funding. The second thing is training. The training has to be better, has to be much, much, much better. And we have a lot of really, really good coaches in our membership base who are fantastic at technical side of things, or fantastic at the tactical side of things, the mental, the physical. We have to now improve as coaches in order to give that to the kids. Like, it needs to be enjoyable. The kids have to want to come to practice. Too many times I go across the country and I sit and I watch practices and you got kids in lines. You got kids in lines. I mean, if I was a kid and I was 8 or 9 years old, here I am playing with my friend and throwing water on him and the coach is not paying attention because I'm in a line and I want to keep myself, I'm bored. Right? So that's going to now discourage me from wanting to do soccer. And I think that happens a lot. And it's because our coaching isn't good enough. We need better coaching education. And it has to be up to us to kind of teach each other, because we've already talked about the cost of getting your A license, your B license. It's pretty expensive. And a guy from the inner city who's probably working a nighttime job and a couple kids, he just can't get up and just leave. And just go take a class for $4,000 in Kansas City. It's not going to happen. So the coaching has to get better, and it's up to us. This is something that we're working on as an association, but we don't want to take on too much on our plate. As you can see, we've got 5 programs that we focus on, but our coaches have to make a better effort to get better at coaching, because learning from each other, I think, is the best way. Because you can take a lot of these licensing courses and a lot of these certificate courses, and you may learn 1 or 2 things, but at the end of the day, is that translating back to the player? Are you making your players better? Are you improving? Are you making it more fun for them so that they look forward to showing up to practice? I think we have too much bad training in the cities, and a lot of these kids are saying, well, I don't want to go back to practice. I don't want to play soccer anymore.
No, I love what you said about the no lines, especially for kids at that young age. Like, they don't want to be standing around. They want to be active, they want to play, and they want to get better. And I think when you say access, I think what I found is that, kids in the inner city, they love soccer. If you expose it to them, they love it. The fact that you can, your footwork, balance, and now it's getting more involved, like from a media standpoint and culture. You just got to give them just a taste of it, and
Yep.
they'll bite it. So
Right.
I love those two reasons.
Give them sorry, just I want to add one more thing. So give them a taste of the sport, have them enjoy it, and then there has to be a next step. Like our kids, and I know me growing up, I love competition, as a child. I always like to compete. I always look forward to recess, because recess in elementary school, I was always the best player because I played, right? Outside. So I always loved playing, always loved playing. So we have to kind of instill that in the kids as well. They have to always want to play. Look forward to the first thing that they do when they get to recess at school is to kick a soccer ball and get some of their friends together. That's also pick up soccer. And you're doing that during the school. I don't know if that still happens, right? But I think that's something that's important. Like we have to instill wanting to play the game in these kids, and we have to make it enjoyable. And if it's a matter of them playing on a team and then traveling and going to tournaments and the experience that you get, imagine being an inner city kid who has never left your quadrant and being able to go out to all these different places, even if it's outside of Washington, D.C., right? Yeah. That was an experience for me because I lived in Washington, D.C. my first 8 years of life. So anytime I would go out to Montgomery County or Anne Arundel County or Howard County, I always look forward to it, right? So that's something that we have to provide the kids in the inner cities. We have to give them that experience.
No, I mean, you hit the nail on the head with that one, because growing up for me, tournaments were our vacations. It wasn't like we weren't doing family vacations to Disneyland, but we were going to Surf Cup, we were going to Dallas Cup, and it incentivized me to like work hard. So because you want to stay longer at these trips, you want to make it till Sunday, you want to make it till Monday. So win these games and like have that opportunity, and then you're not playing all day, so that downtime is when you can kind of explore, whether you're just chilling in the hotel or doing a little sightseeing. So I love what you said about that.
Plus the experience you get, right, at tournaments. I'll never forget my 2 times going to Dallas Cup. We played a team from Argentina. I'd never played a team from Argentina before. They ended up beating us 1-0, but I think a couple of the guys ended up becoming professionals in the Argentinian league. So just that experience alone, like it never leaves you.
That's true.
You still think about that. I mean, last time I was at Dallas Cup as a player, I was 17 years old, so over 20 years ago. Like you never stop thinking about that experience, meeting and playing against somebody from Argentina or playing against somebody from Germany. So helping, giving kids from the inner city that exposure, I think is important, but we need programs to be able to do that. And the leaders of these programs have to think that way.
No, that's what it's all about. What else you got? Elle, I know you got some questions that you wanted to ask before we get into the topics.
Yeah, one question I had about licensing. I'm not sure how it works in, American football or basketball, but I always hear about like licensing when it comes to coaching, even on the youth level in soccer. So is that something that is also another barrier to entry? So like you see, Ray from the neighborhood is coaching, helping coach the
AAU team.
The AAU team or the local, Pop Warner team, but it seems like that's not something that people can necessarily pick up and do when it comes to youth soccer. So, are those barriers the same in every youth sport when it comes to like licensing?
To be honest, I'm not sure about basketball or football either, but I think of course with like a football coach, he's already in that culture. Right. So he's already watching football on Sundays. He probably played the game. So it's around him all the time in the inner city, as opposed to soccer. Soccer's not around them all the time. Okay. There's no Pop Warner soccer games where you get all these people coming together and it's just a competition. Those games are played in the inner city. If you're an inner city club, you have to go outside to get competition. You don't have your other inner city clubs to play against. Right. So I mean, I can only really base that on like Prince George's County, like living there for a bit. It's a predominantly Black county. Yes, it's the suburbs, but there are some, areas that are low income areas. But I would go into those areas and see lots of football happening, and football is coming to them. So in terms of licensing, I don't know what barriers they deal with, but in terms of soccer, there are different things I think if there is a guy who never played soccer before and he wants to coach it, just to give the kids an opportunity and just to be a coach to do it. There are like grassroots programs and grassroots classes that he can take just to learn the basics. I mean, back in the day, you had coaches. I mean, even my college coach, he never played soccer. He was a karate instructor.
How is that possible?
He was a karate instructor at a Division I school, might I add. A karate instructor and a PE teacher. Never played soccer before, but he read a book. And he collected whatever his salary was, maybe $90,000 a year they were paying him to be a full-time coach. So, you know, an inner city coach could pick up a book too. Pick up a book, take some classes. I mean, hey, if that coach at, you know, University of Delaware can do it, and that's coaching at a Division I level. I mean, he wasn't a very good coach, let's be honest. But the inner city coach doesn't have to be a good coach. He just has to teach the kids the basics and let the kids play, because soccer is not his thing. So
that's another thing that you mentioned about the tournament that you guys are looking to host on a yearly basis. I think that's a good opportunity as well to expose our community to the game. Like we could make it like an event similar to like CIAA or something like that, where it ingrains like, you know, traditions from our cultures, but introducing it to a different sport.
Yeah. So,
you know, you're taking the hype around like homecoming football games and stuff like that, but then you're just replacing the American football with, you know, soccer. I think we can ingrain that same type of culture and really help build and, you know, make the game a lot more exciting.
I think we can. I think we can. And the DC Cup, the location is really great. It's like 10 minutes from Howard University campus. So the players can actually stay on campus, and it's cheaper for them to stay on campus than it is for them to like stay in hotels. So they can get the Howard University experience by, you know, being on the campus at HBCU and being able to tour it and visit it and all that good stuff. So me being here in Atlanta, I actually got a commitment from a club, a predominantly Black club, who will be coming up to the tournament. If it happens this summer, it's all based upon COVID. And they're looking forward to that. They're looking forward to bringing their kids up. They can see, you know, the HBCU, you know, that everybody talks about. And they'll most likely get to meet the coaches. You know, I'll see if I can set something up for them. So that'll be a great experience. So DC is such a wonderful city because it is such an international, diverse city. So it can definitely be that.
That'll be amazing. That's going to be
for sure. I might have to come up for that and looking forward to that.
Come on up, man.
So let's jump into another quick segment before we get into our topics. 2 truths and a cap. So this is just a little quick game we play where you'll tell us 3 facts about yourself. 2 of them will be true. 1 will be a lie. And Amobi and I have to guess what the lie is.
Okay.
So go ahead.
All right. So number 1 is I scored 35 goals in 1 season. That's number 1.
Wait, at what level?
At the high school level.
Okay.
That's number 1. Number 2 is I played for the Trinidad and Tobago national team. That's number 2. All right. Number 3 is I've visited 15 countries.
Oh, that's pretty good. And you said national team as in like full team or like youth national team?
Full team.
Okay. I try to get him to slip up. Okay.
Can't Google, man.
Yeah, I'm not Googling. My head is free.
Show me those hands, man.
Ooh, I'm going Trinidad and Tobago, well traveled. He said he played forward and midfield in high school before he went to college. Nah, I'm going. You didn't play for the national team.
Yeah, I'm gonna say national team is cap.
You're right. I never played.
You definitely would have brought that up.
I would have brought that through.
Sure.
Good one.
I was like, I remember because he said like right after college he moved back to start volunteering. So I was like, wait, do he still play? So I was trying to figure out. Yeah, that was a good one. Almost got us.
Yeah,
that's a good segue too. Speaking of Trinidad and Tobago, I came across the video you posted on Instagram where you were explaining the failures of the Caribbean associations and how that affects Black coaches, but also how it affects Concacaf as a whole. So can you share your thoughts around that and kind of, tell us what's going on with there?
Yeah, so the Caribbean is something that's a region that's very, very important to me. As I mentioned, my dad was from Trinidad and Tobago, and my mom is from there as well. And I spent a lot of time in the region, whether it's speaking with football associations, whether it's visiting, whether it's talking to the people, whether it's talking to the grassroots coaches. I spent a lot of time in that region. But the thing that disappoints me the most is just how they treat football. They they just don't treat it with the respect that they need to treat it with in order to help us as myself as a coach slash administrator who's outside of the country. There should be an opportunity for me to be able to apply for a position at, say, the Jamaica Football Federation or the Trinidad and Tobago Football Association, because I do have experience in coaching and administration. The problem is there are no positions, and there are no positions in particularly those associations and pretty much the rest of them, because they have no structure. So when you have no structure and no organization, you can't create opportunities for anybody else, right? For many years, the Trinidad and Tobago Football Association was run under Jack Warner. And some people like Jack, some people don't like him too much. But I think the problem with Jack is that he never set up the association for long-term success. And I don't know if you guys have followed what's happened within the last year when FIFA came in with the normalization committee in order to kick out the elected officials, which I disagreed with. And they brought in someone from Trinidad and Tobago to normalize things. They ended up giving money, I think something in the millions, I think about $2 million US dollars, in order for them to pay off the debt, because the TTFA had been in debt by 60 million TT dollars. So they're slowly starting to pay off. But why is that a problem? The TTFA has been around since 1908, over 100 years. They've been a part of FIFA, I think, since the 60s or the 70s. You tell me you've had that long to get your shit together. Excuse my language. Hope I can curse on this show. And
free game.
You've had that many years to get your shit together, and this is the situation that you're in. And the longer you stay in these situations, the more it's worse, not just for us as Black administrators and coaches to get opportunities, the worse it is for CONCACAF. Look at the United States. I think their structure is excellent in terms of business. Yes, we may say on the field for the men's side, they're not very good or they're getting better. I see that they have a nice crop of young players who are coming in who could potentially qualify for 2022, but they've got structure. But it took a while for them to get that structure. And it took a while for the men's team to get to the level that they're at right now. There are opportunities in US soccer. I can go online right now, and if I want to apply for a position in US soccer, I might not get it, but I can apply for it. With the TTFA, the JFF, the Barbados Football Association, you can't do anything. There's nothing like that. There's no opportunities. So going back to the US men's team has never won a World Cup, as we know. Mexico has never won a World Cup. They've won on, well, not the US, but Mexico has won at the U17 level before, yeah. Right? Or I think like the U20s as well. But the reason why when they get to play against those European clubs from France, Netherlands, England, they can't compete. And they can't compete because of the competition they're getting in the Caribbean. The competition is weak, and it's weak because the structure is weak. Same thing with the US. The US may look good in CONCACAF. They may be beating these teams 9-0, 6-0, whatever. But when you get to Europe, you can't beat those teams. When you get to South America, you can't beat those teams because your competition in CONCACAF is weak. Competition makes you better. Competition makes everybody better. So the longer the Caribbean nations continue to stay poor in terms of their structure from a business standpoint, in terms of their technical abilities, it always seems like the guy who gets the coaching position is the guy who's friends with the president, or somebody knows somebody. It's never the person that's the most qualified that gets the job. And that's a problem. The person most qualified should get the job, and it should be someone from that country. Trinidad right now has a guy from England who's coaching the national team. He's lived in Trinidad for some time. He's married to a Trinidadian, but he doesn't understand the culture. So there's no way you can coach that team, and there's no way that those players are going to ever respect or even understand you. But that guy was hired because he was friends with a friend with a friend. That's how it happens down there. And it's so frustrating because you've got a lot of coaches of Caribbean descent who are here in the United States who've got their A licenses, who go overseas, they go to Spain, they go to the Netherlands, and they get all these different licenses. They coach, but only here in the United States, all they can do is coach under 12 team. But these guys are overqualified for that. But they can't go back to the Caribbean and get a job because they don't know if they're going to get paid. Are you going to leave your family if you got 2 kids and a wife? Are you going to leave your family and go down to the Caribbean hoping to get paid when you got bills to pay back home? Nobody's going to do that. I won't do that. So you can't even trust that process. Another issue with the Caribbean is transparency. You almost got to like piece articles together to kind of understand what the hell is going on. You got to read something in Europe, and then you got to translate something from another language, from another country about issues in order to figure out what's going on. There's no transparency. So US Soccer, you can go online to their 501c3, you can go to GuideStar, and there's information there. It shows how much revenue US Soccer brought in. I think the most recent one, I think, is like 2019, right? They haven't done their audit for 2020 yet, so it's not posted. But it's there. Whether the numbers are true or not, I don't know, but it's there. In the Caribbean, there's no transparency to finances. And that's crazy because a lot of these associations get money from the Ministry of Sport. The Ministry of Sport gets money from the government. The government gets money from the public, from taxpayers. So there should be some accountability. Those taxpayers need to know where's their money going. That money goes to the government gives it to the Ministry of Sport. The Ministry of Sport gives it to an association where one guy is calling the shots. Most times there's no board. Where's accountability? You know, so that's what gets me riled up, and that's what gets me frustrated, because to go back to opportunity, like there's so many coaches and administrators and even players in our association who I would love to send to the Caribbean, but I'm not going to send them. I'm not going to recommend them. I'm not going to have a guy leave his family and go down to Jamaica and not know if you're going to get paid. All right, Hugh Menzies, for example. Hugh took the women's team to the 2019 World Cup, right? He brought the team up to Florida, right? He's the executive director at Florida Craze. He brought the team up to Florida. He worked with them. He trained them. He brought in players all over the United States with Jamaican descent, took them to the World Cup. They even scored a goal against Italy, I think, right? Mm-hmm. So they got 1 goal in a big World Cup competition for the first time Jamaica or any Caribbean women's team ever made it to the tournament. Scoring a goal at the World Cup is a good accomplishment. It's a great accomplishment. But what happened after? As soon as Hugh came back, Hugh and Lauren Donaldson, who was the assistant, they never got paid. They never got paid. Even the women's team, even the players, it took them months upon months upon months, I think probably a year or so, to finally get some type of money. That's a lack of structure. Like, who wants to be in that environment? I wouldn't want to be in that environment, not knowing when you're going to get paid. The Soca Warriors, Trinidad and Tobago, 2006, they qualified for the World Cup. You know how long those players had to wait to get money? I think it was like 6 years. 6 years.
Oh my goodness.
6 years to finally get paid. Who wants to be in that environment? Not me. I don't think you guys will want to be in that environment. So again, the more the structure continues to fall behind and lag, the less opportunities there are for us as Black coaches. I'm just tired of seeing a lot of, members or even personal friends of mine who are in their 60s, 65 years old, and these guys are far too qualified to be youth coaches, far too qualified, but that's the only opportunity they're going to get. At 65, you're a bit too old for college, unless you've already had experience coaching. You're not going to get an opportunity at the MLS level. The United Soccer, the U.S. national team, not going to get an opportunity there neither. The NWSL, not going to get an opportunity there neither. So where are the opportunities?
Yeah.
The opportunities should be in the Caribbean, but that's what frustrates me about it, because they have no structure. There's no opportunities. And that's what's ruining this region.
The thing about it is too, because you've seen spurts of talent. Obviously, the Soca Warriors made the '06 World Cup. Jamaica, they've gone to the finals of the last two Gold Cups. And I know players personally on that team where it's like the federations, they've said the federation's a joke sometimes and how they act. So you have this talent, you have these guys doing well, whether it's overseas or even in MLS and USL. So you would expect their teams to even perform better, more consistently, but because of the structure and the foundation of these entities, it's not like that. So
no, and I mean, you got guys who are refusing to even play. Joe Jones, like he just recently went from Minnesota to Columbus. I think he signed a deal with Columbus yesterday.
He just went to Columbus too, or Kevin Molino? Which one?
Sorry, Kevin Molino.
I was gonna say, I was like, Columbus is stacked now. Oh
Columbus will be stacked.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Right. Yeah. So Kevin, he's not gonna try to go back and play for Trinidad, right? Under that circumstance. I think he refused to play a game. I think it was both him and Joven. So there you go. Those are your top two players playing here in Major League Soccer, don't want to go play for your country. And unfortunately, that happens a lot, and it's for a lack of professionalism at the end of the day. So,
yeah. Do you think that's also a reason why we're not seeing like the Raheem Sterlings and the Ainsley Maitland-Niles, playing for Jamaica rather than England? Like these players who are, of Caribbean descent, who may have grown up in the UK or anywhere else, they're not coming back to play for their home country. Is it because of this lack of structure and lack of professionalism, you think?
Yep. I mean, check it out. Aubameyang, for example. So I'm going to switch over to Africa because, Africa is just as bad as the Caribbean. Aubameyang, I think he tweeted. Yeah, good player. So I think that he was going to a game, I think, for the African Cup of Nations or something. And he tweeted a photo of the team sleeping in the airport.
Yeah, I saw that one.
I mean, here's a professional, right? This guy's worth millions of dollars, plays for Arsenal, sleeping in an airport. It's a good thing he's a cool dude. And he's just like, all right, well, it is what it is. I'm still going to play for Gabon. Imagine doing that to Cristiano Ronaldo of Portugal, or doing that to Messi in Argentina. I mean, Messi has threatened to leave Argentina multiple times. He would have left Argentina if Argentina treated him like that. Unfortunately, that's become the norm in the Caribbean and in Africa, and it's like they're okay with it.
It's like,
that is crazy, man.
Like they joke about it. Like,
yeah,
before the 2014 World Cup, like Nigeria is like refusing to get off the bus because they haven't got paid, or Ghana, I think. I'm not sure, but like you don't want to have situations like that. That's embarrassing to the country, better to the federation. Take care of the players that represent your country. Simple as that.
Exactly, because then you get other players along the way that's going to come and represent your country. Like France, as everyone has said it, France won the World Cup because of the African players. Take those African players out of the France roster, and they're not winning a World Cup. England made it to the semifinals because of the Jamaican players, right? Take those players out, and they may make it to the round of 16. So, I mean, there's just so much squandered, like with the Caribbean and Africa, they don't understand the value in what they have. There's just so much, squandered talent that they just give up. And like they have no idea how valuable the assets that they have or they could have. So I don't blame it when a player decides to choose England over Jamaica or Spain over Ghana or Nigeria or whomever. I don't blame them. I mean, the structure's just not there. I mean, it's just, who would want to be a part of that? Not me.
For sure. And so kind of piggybacking off of that, you mentioned it a little bit earlier about the lack of opportunities for coaches. So there's an ongoing discussion, especially in Black soccer circles, about the lack of Black coaches and Black, front office leadership at top tier teams, like, over in Europe, especially here in MLS, USL, as well as even, some of the college ranks. So I would like to get, you guys' thoughts on why we aren't seeing more representation. I know there's some reasons like licensing, stuff like that. But what steps can be taken to increase that representation?
So we have some statistics on our website. I'm going to try to just remember them off the top of my head. But, at the NCAA level, I believe 92% of the coaches are white and only about 3 to 4% are Black coaches. You can look at the NWSL. I don't think there's ever been a Black coach in 10 years. The MLS going on 27 years or so. There's probably only been a handful of Black coaches, but there's never been a Black American coach ever, like a full-time coach. I know Kobe Jones stepped in for as an interim coach for the Galaxy for a little bit, but I mean, I'm talking about a full-time gig. So I can talk about the college level in terms of what it's going to take, because a lot of our members are kind of like on the brink. It's important for them to get their master's degree in whether it's business administration or if it's physical education or whatever it is. Like, you have to have that master's degree, I think, when you're going for a head coaching job, because that's going to show the athletic director that you take school serious, right? That you're willing to get your master's degree. A license seems to be the requirement now, at least for a high level job.
Even for college?
Even for college.
Wow.
That's what I'm noticing, at least for the Division I level, whether it's a high Division I or a low, Division I level. So I would say get the master's degree, and then you also need the coaching education as well. The experience. I think sometimes a lot of our members want to hit the home run. They want to be a part of that big Division I school. So they're out there sending their resume out to a school that they're probably never going to get the head coaching job for. So I think just kind of looking at it and say, hey, okay, well, why don't I start with the NAIA and then maybe build up to Division III, Division II if I need to be an assistant, just kind of work my way up. So I think just kind of understanding that level, just kind of working your way up to the Division I level if it's going to be possible. Now, another issue that we have are the athletic directors who are making these decisions. They tend not to look like us. Let's just call it what it is, right? So they're going to make a decision based upon maybe the fact that this coach played at the school, or this coach was the captain at some point at this school, or he knows the family of this potential coach. There's always something, right? So usually not the best guy gets selected for the job. So knowing that we're going up against that, it's important that we have the best possible resume to make ourselves as competitive as possible. On the professional level, that's just tough because MLS is just kind of, it's all over the place. All right, let's just call it what it is. DC United, Ben Olsen was the coach for about 12 years. Ben was a player at DC United for many, many years. He went from a player to retiring to becoming an assistant to becoming a head coach. I don't think Ben has any licenses, or maybe he does now. I don't know. But that's the structure, right? And if you're a professional player, you stand a lot better chance of becoming a head coach. So a lot of the guys who are members of our association play in the USL. So I tell these guys, as you're playing, get your head coaching badges. That's important because you don't want to just all of a sudden not get a contract and then you're stuck having to, coach whomever and just take whatever job. So as you're playing, get your badges so that there's a possibility that you could become an assistant for the club that you just retired from, or maybe even the head coaching role, right? It happens. So it's making our members as marketable as possible is something that we focus on and something that we help them with. And that's something that we have to be, because we got to have a really, really good resume because we're not easily selected. Let's just call it what it is. We're not the first preference most times. But if our resume is outstanding and it stands out to the athletic director or the general manager of a professional team, then you stand a lot better chance of getting an interview.
No, that's a great point. I think for me, when it comes to, the lack of diversity, I don't think there's a good effort in bringing in participation in the sense of like making people feel welcome to have the opportunity. I don't want to say it's closed off, but I just feel like it's like, you're invited to the party, but like they tell you late, or
right.
It's like a sympathy invite. So you don't feel like welcome. You don't feel wanted to even pursue that opportunity. And it's not only coaching, but maybe like front office staff, or even like, there's so many other ways to get involved in the sports from a soccer standpoint, nothing, administration. So I think that's kind of the biggest thing on from my standpoint when it comes to.
Right. Right. And I'll say with the front office staff, I know I didn't touch base on that. I would say that that's a similar approach. Take, for example, the president of operations for DC United, the first Black woman, Danita Johnson, I believe is her name. But she ended up getting the position because she went from the women's basketball league. I don't know what she did before, but she went from the women's basketball league as an executive to DC United. So being able to kind of take advantage of, I guess, whatever opportunity comes your way from an executive level to work your way up to Major League Soccer is a good approach. But the executive level, I think, is a bit more difficult. But I will say that, for the head coaches or to become a head coach, you have to have a more competitive resume because, of course, there are more opportunities for you to coach as opposed to being an executive. Usually the executives in sports tend to be for professional sports.
Yeah.
But with coaching now, you're talking about, you got colleges. Like I think there's like 1,800 NCAA options for both boys and girls, right? So I would say, build your resume.
No, that's great advice. That's great advice.
One thing that kind of struck me as you were talking earlier about requirements is you mentioned that like a master's degree is required along with the A license. So I was just kind of doing a little Googling real quick, and like if you think about college football or college basketball, how many of those coaches have master's degrees? Like is it even a requirement for those sports? Which brings another question, like why is the barrier entry so high for soccer? Like we always talk about it's a country club sport, right? Mm-hmm. Is that another kind of way of filtering out, minorities and stuff like that? Like, is it more of a systemic thing? Like it may be conscious, maybe subconscious, but like having these such high requirements, such expensive licenses to get into this sport. I feel like it really filters out like, Black coaches and coaches of other ethnicities.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it is because as a recruiter, you have to be able to go out and speak to families. And most times when you look at these rosters, I got a call not too long ago from a parent, and he's in the Chicagoland area. So he wanted to see if I can find a mentor for his son. But his son is getting ready to transition. I think he's a junior, so he's now starting to look at colleges. He looked at the roster, and the roster of the schools that he wanted to go to are predominantly white. So out of a roster of 28, you may have 24 white guys, maybe one or two Black guys. I know for me, when I played, at least my first 3 years in college, I was the only Black guy at University of Delaware, and University of Delaware is just outside of Philadelphia. Philadelphia is pretty Black, not too far from New York, pretty Black. Where the hell are all the Black players? I was the only one, So when you are a head coach or an assistant coach, I guess there's an expectation when it comes to speaking, like, the stigma. If a Black guy talks a certain way, he's talking white, or, he's educated or he's not educated or whatever. So I think the athletic directors kind of set that standard because they know as a Black coach, you're going to be talking to white families to get your kid into college. That's what I think. I mean, that's just my opinion. I could be wrong, but I think that's why the standard is much higher as opposed to like a football guy. Think about it. Alabama, for example, let's use them as an example. A football roster for college, I think, is 53 players. I know that's what it is for the NFL. So let's just say it's 53
over 100.
Yeah, it's like 60 to 70.
Yeah,
they have like red shirts and practice squad even in the college level. So yeah.
Okay, so let's say 60 to 70. But look at the percentage of the players on the team who are Black, probably about 70, 80%.
Yeah.
So if you are a guy who just played college at Alabama and maybe you went to the NFL, played for a few years, you can come back because you can relate to the families of those players. You can go into the home and go talk to the mom if the mom is, say, a single mom. You can go into the home and talk to the parents, right? If it's both male and female parents, of course, right? In the home. So it makes it a lot easier in terms of communication. So the standard to me, I think, is much lower in, say, college, football or basketball based upon the demographic of the players as opposed to soccer. It's totally different.
Yeah, that's a good point. They'll even use former players as they call them runners. So they're basically used as like salesmen to, recruit young talent to come back to the school. They will never give them high head coaching position, but they give them the runner position. So that's interesting too.
Yeah, it is. Definitely is.
So
Yeah, that's crazy. Like definitely, there's definitely some racial bias going on, because even what you were saying was like you're talking to white families, right? So we expect you to speak a certain way. Like even that in itself has some bias attached to it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then thinking about like, the bar being lower because football and basketball have predominantly black players in the sports. Like even then, like you should still be able to talk to these families at a high level. It shouldn't matter if the family's white or black.
Right.
Right. The way you speak should be professional, regardless of what sport it is. So it's just funny. It's kind of some things that I'm kind of seeing as you've been, explaining everything. So it's kind of a crazy situation out there when it comes to soccer.
Right. And it starts at the youth level. Like just look at it. I mean, it took me until I was about 16, 17 to finally be on a team of diversity. All right. About 15. But before that, again, I was the only black player on most of the teams at the youth level. So if I had a black head coach, which was very rare, I didn't get my first black head coach probably until I was, say, 13, 14, and then off to college. Until I got to college, then the coach was white again. As a coach, you're dealing with white parents most of the time. All right. So that's what you're dealing with all the way up in coaching soccer, because the white kids are the ones who are the predominant in the sport at all levels until you get to, say, the professional level, right? MLS, I think it's 20% black players, and then you got, 20 something, 30% Hispanics. So there's a little bit more diversity. But from the youth level all the way up to college is predominantly white. So therefore, as a coach, you have to be able to be somewhat educated, right? That's the term they like to be able to use. So you can speak to the white parents and they can understand you. You convince their kids to come to your school, as opposed to a Pop Warner football coach. I don't know if you guys saw the video. Did you see the video of the guy who popped the kid and knocked him down a couple times?
Yeah.
That's the mentality, right? That's the mentality. And I don't know where that was. I think it was in somewhere, but that's what the parents are used to. Unfortunately, I've seen so many crazy football coaches yelling.
I'm pretty sure they was fighting after that, though.
8 years old. So I go to one coach one time years ago. I say, "Hey man, you all right?" Because I'm like, why are you yelling at an 8-year-old and shaking his helmet and doing all this stuff? Like that just seemed to be something that's common in football. So that's something that those football players who eventually go off to play for Alabama or University of Georgia, they're used to that already. They're used to coach like that. So therefore the expectation to me is just a lot lower for the athletic director. So I'm just trying to look at it from that standpoint as to maybe why the bar seems to be a lot higher for black coaches in soccer as opposed to coaches in other sports.
That's a good point.
You got anything else on that, Amobi?
No, that was. I mean, I feel like we covered it. Let's. I feel like more people are starting to talk about it. So as like more people kind of break the mold, we have, you, Justin, doing the wonderful work that you're doing. Other people that are, trying to make a name and trying to like I don't want to say expose, but like break the barrier or break the mold. It's only bound to like make some changes, and all we need is a collection of people to continue to push through, because as we get closer to our goals, that's when the leeches start to come,
right?
And, so it's important to stick together and support each other and stay strong. That's all.
It is. I mean, it's really important. The communication has to be there. The transparency has to be there. Anytime as, Black Soccer Membership Association, we get into, say, a partnership with a member, which is what we do, right? So we'll do different partnerships with members in specific areas to help them out, whether it's, providing consultancy in terms of starting your own club, or if they're doing a tournament or whatever, like we will help them. In that sense, we always ask them, well, what do you guys want out of this? What is your long-term goal? What's your short-term goal? What's your long-term goal? What's your end goal? And what's your exit strategy? Those are important to lay all that out in the beginning to make sure that you are a good fit to working with this person. Because I think what happens sometimes in our community, we get started with stuff and people don't really know what their end goal is. And then we get frustrated, 4 or 5 months into it, and we say, oh, I don't want to work with this guy anymore.
Yeah.
Or this guy can't be trusted. Like we have trust issues in our community. I don't know why that is.
It's tough.
colonialism.
It's something that's just too common. I think communication is the reason why the trust issues are the way they are. So I think just kind of laying things out, from the beginning to the end is the best approach in order for us to work together.
Yeah, for sure. So let's switch gears up. Go into one of our favorite parts of the show. No card, yellow card, red card.
All right.
So this is a rapid fire segment of the show where I will read off some headlines from soccer news, and our guest Justin, as well as Amobi, will kind of give their opinions based on the soccer card system. So no card is I'm in agreement. I'm cool with it. Yellow card is I can go either way. It's a foul, but I'll allow it. And red card is obviously red card is obviously I disagree, or I'm not cool with that.
Okay.
So let's jump right into it. No card, yellow card, red card. DC United is in the running to sign Mesut Ozil. So now this has changed as of recently, as of like today, but just the audacity of it. I'm gonna get you guys' thoughts.
Red card.
Oh, yeah. I want you want us to explain first, and then I'll go.
Yeah. What?
Yeah. So I mean, DC United unfortunately does this too much, and of course, with me being close by and kind of somewhat following the team, they like to get older players to come in, and it's just for names, as opposed to maybe getting a younger player to come in and bring some excitement to the crowd and somebody who could stay around for a bit. I mean, Mesut Ozil is gonna stay around maybe 3 years, like Ibrahimovic did, like Rooney did. I think Rooney only stayed a couple years, and then he's gonna go. I mean, why?
Yeah, I would say yellow card. And for Ozil's sake, because I feel like he can still play like top level. And no disrespect to like MLS or DC, but Ozil, like that's a World Cup champion. He's not even like maybe 31, 32.
I think he's 33.
He's 33? Is that old?
I believe he's 33.
He's at Arsenal for 8 years, dude.
He's been at Arsenal for 8 years.
And he's sitting the bench right now.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so that might change my. I'm not Ozil guy. I mean, if he's playing at DC, it's like who's he gonna get the ball to? It's okay, 32. So yeah,
he's 32. Yeah. Okay,
2-3 solid years. I'm still going yellow card. I still think he's high level talent, and I think DC, like for who they want, like he's not going to get people out their seats to come to games. I don't think he's popular, but he's not like a name that everyone knows. That's like soccer fans will know Ozil, but not everyone knows. Like Wayne Rooney, to a certain extent, will get people, but not Ozil. So yeah, that's my yellow card. I'm going to yellow card.
Okay. All right, next one. No card, yellow card, red card. FC Barcelona looking into buying an MLS franchise in an attempt to keep Messi.
I say yellow card. And I say yellow card because, sport has become a brand. I mean, Barcelona is a brand. I mean, everybody knows it all over the world. So I think by them, coming here to the U.S., I know Messi has said in the past that he wants to play here in the US. So I think that's just kind of an easy, simple transition. And they could possibly make him part owner of that MLS team, kind of what they did in Miami with David Beckham. So yellow card for me.
Oh yeah, that's a great point. Soccer has to do with brand, and I feel like Messi is synonymous with Barca. So Barca should do everything in their power to keep him. But I think it's a red card. I don't think Barca is going to be able to. I mean, they could buy a franchise, but it's like which franchise is going to be strategic enough where it makes sense to have like a Barca, Barca U.S. City tie.
RSL's for sale.
Yeah, but yeah,
they can move them. They can relocate them somewhere.
What city would make sense for a Barca run a franchise in the States that's not already taken?
Yeah, that's a good question. But I mean, the great thing about soccer, and we know this in London, right? Aren't there like 6 clubs in London? So why don't we add another one to New York?
Yeah, true. Yeah. I could see like Barca.
They got enough problems in New York already. with
Yeah.
stadiums and all that stuff. So
They have a Barca Academy in Phoenix, or
It's true.
or
that could be one because Phoenix doesn't have an MLS club yet.
but it's
Take
like
RSL, move them to Phoenix.
no,
They would hate that.
Yeah. I don't know if Phoenix would like that because I know they got
That's what I'm
Phoenix.
saying.
That was created like a little rivalry too.
Yeah.
That should be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think Phoenix is too small of a market, though. I think if anything, it's got to be a big market.
Vegas, I'm sleep. Vegas,
yeah.
parts of Vegas connections. I don't know. We'll see. Who knows?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
All right. So last one. No card, yellow card, red card. Harry Kane to Man City in the summer.
For me, red card. No, Man City should not do that. Harry Kane should not do that. I don't think. No. I don't think
Red card for me as well. Go ahead. Yeah. Red card for me as well. I just don't see the reason. I mean, to go from Tottenham to Man City, I mean, I just don't see what. I mean, if anything, he should leave.
Trophies.
Could. Yeah, I mean, could win some trophies. Yeah. Red card for me though.
Yeah, I don't think Harry Kane doesn't look like a Man City player. You know, certain players have like a vibe to the team they're on. He doesn't fit the mold for me when I think of Man City.
Right. Plus, you can also look at how he gels with Raheem Sterling. I mean, do they gel when they play on the English national team together?
No, Kane doesn't pass. Like he always trying to get the goal.
He tries to shoot every time he gets the ball.
And that's why they lost that game in the semis in the World Cup.
Yeah.
All you gotta do is pass it across. And who knows? Raheem might have fumbled it, but still, like high percentage.
High percentage shot, right? Yeah. So seeing that, to me, I don't think they have much chemistry on the national team. I mean, it's a red card for me.
Yeah. I can't rock with that one.
Yeah, seems fair. That's it.
No, Justin, lots of gems for shared. Where can people find you if they want to connect with you? I know you got like a million things that you got doing. You're in Atlanta right now. You live in Maryland. I think you said you're going to Chicago next. Where can people connect with you?
So it's very simple. You can go to the blacksoccercoaches.org website. On the top of the homepage, you'll see a phone number. And then you'll also see an email address. You can send an email to info@blacksoccercoaches.org. You can also reach us on Instagram @RealBSMA. You can reach us on Facebook as well. I think that's Black Soccer Membership. And you can reach us on LinkedIn and Twitter as well. So you just type in Black Soccer Membership Association, and you'll be able to reach us there. So 5 different ways.
So you guys heard it. Anywhere and everywhere, he will connect with you. Thank you so much for taking the time. That's also going to be in the show notes. But that's our show for this week. Subscribe, rate, and review. It helps us get discovered. We're about to hit 30 episodes. It's crazy. We started with the first intro episode, and now we're here, interviewing presidents and founders of companies. So it's really great. But
Congrats, guys.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Follow us on the socials at 2CentsFC. Check out our merch at 2centsports.shop. It helps support the show as well. As you can see, I'm rocking the hat. L's usually rocking some gear, but he tried to show off his collection today. And then tweet us your comments on the show and any topics you want me or El to discuss. As you guys know, every Friday, unfiltered thoughts and opinions when it comes to soccer. That's it again. We out.
Thank you, guys.
Peace.